Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We welcome you once again to the airwaves of Salam Media on this Wednesday evening in conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi, where once again we host a panel discussion looking at relevant issues and pertinent issues. And nothing could be more relevant, nothing could be more important than the genocide in Gaza, as we have been doing for well over 23 months, week after week, providing coverage of developments as they occur. Now, tonight, we want to focus on the outcome of the Doha summit, and this is where we are raising the question Arab security or Palestinian betrayal. And when one looks at the outcome of the Doha summit and the various resolutions that were taken, and they've come under the radar, they've come under scrutiny, and they've come under severe criticism, where once again an opportunity was given for the Muslim world, for the Arab world, for the leadership in the Arab world after the Israeli attack on Doha had taken place to try and eliminate the Hamas leadership that is based in Doha, in Qatar. And was this an opportunity for the Arab nations, for the Muslim world, and the leadership in particular, to take notice of what the Israeli intentions are? This Zionist entity is gone rogue. It is a pariah state. It is non-stop. And once again, extreme disappointment from many quarters right across the entire world on the outcome of the Doha summit. And this is the reason why we have once again assembled our panel. Alhamdulillah, we have the opportunity of linking up once again with Professor Nidal Sakr, who is the chairperson of March for Justice, Lina Abojaradeh, Palestinian artist, and also a humanitarian activist, a filmmaker as well. And joining us out of the UK this evening, Brother Omer Hussein, Palestinian activist and a son of a Nakba survivor, Alhamdulillah. So we've got our guests coming through on screen right now as we welcome our guests. Brother Umar, right up on screen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to you.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, Sister Lina, as always, Jazakallah for your time as well. Assalamu alaikum to you.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thanks for having me.
Yes, Alhamdulillah. And also Professor Nidal, always a regular, and we do appreciate your time. Assalamu alaikum and welcome.
Wa alaikum assalam wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yes, Professor Nidal, let's actually just start off with you and the question that we are raising tonight in the aftermath of the Doha summit and the outcome of the Doha summit. And this is a question that we raised, as a headline question when we advertised the broadcast, Arab security or Palestinian betrayal. Now, this seems to have featured pretty strongly and it's become a huge point of discussion, but also at the same time, disappointment. Are you disappointed at the outcome?
Oh, not at all, actually. I would have been disappointed if I expected anything more than what we saw, and what we saw is quite typical and expected. This is the job of those people. I don't know why the term summit is used. I would assume summit is like the cream of the crop of any society or situation. Those are the thugs. Those are basically like the scumbags of their societies, and they were forced on the people, a bunch of dictators, a bunch of servants of the Israeli-US agenda. Among them are the leaders of the food corridor from Dubai all the way to save the Israelis. All of them have played major role in the Gaza genocide. If there is any fair trial or war or genocide tribunal, those would be actually co-defendants. These are not even neutral or sideliners. These are actually perpetrators of the genocide in Gaza. Many of them actually were the ones who were part of the siege on Qatar and Doha, and they've been actually playing key role undermining Doha or Qatar role, whether in mediation of the crisis of Gaza, or before that Taliban, or any role in the Arab Spring and so on and so forth. So no, actually that's extremely expected, and I have no comment on those people and what they do, because they're when it comes to the aspiration of their own people, they're irrelevant. I was part of the Arab streets. I am part of the Arab streets, even though that I don't live in the Arab world anymore. But people do not look at those as their representative, let alone being their leaders or members of any summit of any kind.
Yes, Jazakallah for that, Professor Nidal. Let's bring Sister Lina into the discussion as well. Sister Lina, you and I obviously had many a discussion on this matter as well, and from what Professor Nidal has articulated as well, again, playing with words, why are they calling it a summit in the first place as well? And even when one looks at some of the opening remarks, I see Sister Lina has actually disappeared from the screen. Perhaps, Brother Omer, you can talk about this as well. We are talking about the leadership of the Muslim world that has actually gotten together, because the statement talks about their majesties, it talks about excellencies, it talks about highnesses, it talks about heads of delegations that have all participated in the summit. Now, if this is the leadership, and these are the titles that are accorded to the leadership that had gathered in Doha when a sovereign country was actually hit, what does this actually tell us? I mean, because what does this tell us about the leadership in these states in general?
Jazakallah khair for the question. I mean, I think Brother Nidal has hit the nail on the head. I mean, these are people that have been thrusted upon the Ummah to keep them in this pitiful state. So what we have seen is not people who are neutral, as the professor said, they are complicit in this genocide. So when Sisi allowed the SAR-5 Israeli warship to go through the Suez Canal, when he allowed arms shipments to go from Alexandria to Haifa, when Erdogan still allowed trade to continue for 2 years. And we can see these are the hallmarks of all these Arab and Muslim rulers. They have been part and parcel of this genocide. So I think we shouldn't even call them leaders. Leaders would indicate that they actually care for this Ummah and have any concern for her, but they don't. These are the enemies of the Ummah, and they're there to ensure that this situation continues. I was in Egypt for the March to Gaza a few months back, and I said to people, do not expect that they even let us march peacefully to the Rafah crossing. These people are here to protect this occupation. They are the real IDF. They are the real first line of defense for the genocide that is taking place in Gaza. And it's really unbelievable that people are talking about what should the response be about Qatar's sovereignty being undermined. What about the lives of hundreds of thousands of Palestinians who have been massacred, children, women, people who are going about their daily lives in masajid, in churches, in schools, in their homes, in refugee camps, and they've been slaughtered. And yet we're talking about, but Qatar has been undermined and has, had its sovereignty questioned. What about the lives of the Muslim people who are being slaughtered? I mean, really, it just shows you the level of nationalism and betrayal that we have inflicting us in the whole Muslim world.
Jazakallah for that, Brother Umar. Sister Lina, I think, Brother Umar spoke about nationalism, and I think that seems to be, that featured very, very strongly in terms of how quickly and with the speed that all these nations had actually rallied behind Qatar. And here we had a genocide that has been unfolding now for 23 months and getting more brutal by the day. As we speak right now, we know what is in Gaza City as well. And again, with the speed with which this gathering had taken place, I know Professor Nidal has taken exception to the word "why summit" as well. It's to basically glorify this meeting, but with the speed that this was held just for the sake of Qatar, I mean, are we surprised?
I mean, considering the state of, the Arab Islamic leaders these days, I think it was pretty impressive that they were able to garner 57 heads of states or 57 states to participate in this summit. So that in itself, I think they consider as a feat. just listening to some of the speeches that these Arab leaders gave, you feel like it was almost like a speech competition or a platform for them to showcase their diplomatic vocabulary. These leaders, I felt, considered themselves that they actually did something significant by using language such as "we condemn Israel." I think this was the first time that Sisi actually said those words. And so I think they considered that they did a great feat for Gaza, a great feat against Israel. And all of these words, condemn, 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 there wasn't a single sentence saying that we've decided to take some sort of action. It was all kind of this diplomatic language. They kept talking about international law, UN values, and Israel doesn't speak that language. We know that Israel doesn't care about international law, it doesn't care about peace and security of the region. It pretty much has threatened every single country within the region and has bombed Yemen, Lebanon, Syria, now Qatar, and of course Gaza and the West Bank. And so obviously this type of language doesn't work with someone like Israel, a terrorist ethno-state like Israel. And yet this is what we continuously hear. And as Arab populations, like myself living in Jordan, it's very, very heartbreaking to see that this is the state of the Arab and Islamic Ummah. And it goes even beyond that. You kind of feel like it's a joke where they think that as Arab people, we're kind of easily deceived or that we're easily pacified by these words. But we know the truth, as the other guests mentioned, they're complicit. And it goes beyond just not preventing the genocide, but it's also supporting it in different ways. I was actually reading about the economic relations with Israel from these Arab Islamic states, and I was shocked. Like Indonesia, for example, the trade increased 25% since 2024. Nigeria, 45%. Egypt, 52%. Morocco, 53%. Bahrain, 933%. The trade has gone up with Israel. So, what are they talking about? Like, how are they preventing Israel in any shape or form? And so I think as people, because I know the people of these countries are completely against Israel. So the problem isn't the people. The problem is the fact that we are allowing these leaders to represent us. So I think there needs to be some sort of alternative governance or some sort of alternative alliance that really represents the people. And I think that's something that needs to be on the grassroots and that we need to start putting in place.
Yes, we actually, we want to obviously try and understand, what needs to happen on the ground as well, Sister Lina, but also Professor Nidal. As Lina mentioned, she spoke about competition or some sort of a speech competition. And when one looks at the type of language that had actually come out of this gathering, talking about reaffirming our unwavering commitment to sovereignty, to independence, to security of member states, of the League of Arab States, of the OIC, and all these organizations, and again, shrouded and clouded with fancy language like a collective duty to respond to aggression. And this is where the question is really raised, is where has this collective obligation, where has this collective duty been all this time as far as Palestine is concerned?
Brother Inayat, I don't know why we choose to deny reality. We had Blinken and the Biden administration coming on to say that when he came to the Middle East, trying to solve the crisis of Gaza and the genocide, that he was shocked that basically it was the Arab leaders of the region that they were inciting the American administration actually to escalate the war and the attack on Gaza. So we need to believe the truth for what it is. Those regimes actually not only they are backing Israel and support Israel, they're more Israeli or more Zionist and more against their people than Israel itself. Israel, I think Netanyahu, if he goes into competition about who's more Zionist, him against or the Arab leaders that were in Doha, probably like all of them actually out Zion him in that regard. And of course, the American administration has spoken against or about this. The Israelis themselves spoke about this. The mediators themselves spoke about this. And just like the brothers and the sisters, they were talking by the numbers about how they, up their support for Israel to commit its crime and to finish the job in Gaza. I would like to shift the conversation a little bit towards on what's really at stake right now, and how do we see things, or how should we look at this thing and see which way or which direction it's going. As I said before, that Arab leaders and as a proxy, Arab people on the streets are irrelevant at this point, because basically they have not really been doing hardly anything. Of course, not doing enough, but not doing anything for Gaza or for Palestine or for even their own country's sovereignty and national dignity. We look at the people around the world and how the streets are changing in the countries that support this genocide, that are behind this genocide. How we see the American streets are shifting, how we see Europe is shifting, how we see people from all over the world on the grassroots level are standing against genocide and doing everything that they can to end, actually not only the genocide, actually they're bringing into question so-called Israel. And we see here in the US, for example, like one poll after another showing the shift in those, public opinion and cross-generational shift in the how they view the area, how they view Palestine, how they view the world. We also need to keep in mind, when the conversation started about Gaza, how many of the outspoken people, quote unquote, from our side or the side of the pro-Palestine camp, how they were all almost unanimously condemning October 7 and condemning Hamas and so forth. And how right now, like, everything came to the question of, even when we see the UN voting on two-state solution, that they had to stipulate Palestinian state without Hamas. I mean, who is to choose for us? Who is to choose the people who their leaders are? And when you start like minimizing the cause into condemning an act of resistance, legitimate act of resistance that took place on October 7, not accepting the Israeli narrative anyway, and at the same time, like how the elected, democratically elected government of the Palestinian, which is Hamas, as far as I'm concerned, is the only democracy in the Middle East, as far as we know it, until another election is held in Palestine. So when we accept all of these, primitives, as the problem is October 7, the problem is Hamas, the problem is this and that, and we put ourselves on the defensive, and we allow like the Israeli narrative and the American narrative and all the arguments that they put forth to undermine our cause, undermine our legitimacy, undermine our national aspiration, then we start really like from the situation where we saw in Doha, that we are basically irrelevant and we are subject to this imperialist, Zionist, European colonialist plan that we have. We need to put things in perspective and reset the course and the compass. Right now, we had a poll that was by Harvard last month, speaking that 66% of Americans support Hamas, and almost the same ratio is against Israel. We see people right now, some of the influencers from the right, actually, these are Trump supporters, that they're speaking about how they want, they're thinking actually to run for office in the next election cycle, whether it's going to be the one in 26 or 28, and they're running on anti-Israel platform. So we need to keep up with that trend. The people is waking up and taking a stand and so forth. And unfortunately, the Muslims and the Arabs right now, they're really like misrepresenting the cause. They're not being good ambassador to the cause and being apologetic. And other people actually see it for what it is and being fearless about it and paying very high price for it. And we need to, try to avoid being replaced, because this is what's happening right now. Right now, the Arabs and the Muslims are being replaced by the population of the world and people from all over the world standing for Palestine. Something that I've been warning against for a long time. And it's mostly because of us being apologetic and being actually compromising with our own cause, our own values, and what we stand for. We are people that have a purpose, have a message, have a role in this life to play. And alhamdulillah, we all come from one of the greatest civilizations humanity has ever seen. And we need to demonstrate that and manifest it in everything we do, especially when it comes to Gaza today.
Yes, Brother Omer, I think, the time obviously has come where we need to call a spade a spade. And as Professor Nidal speaks about the Arab Zionists, and this was something that came up in a show that I hosted many years ago, and I came under severe criticism talking about Arab Zionists and, how can you actually refer to Arabs as Zionists? And at that point in time, reference was made to the House of Saud and the custodians of the Haramain, and all those arguments were basically thrown at me to justify the criticism that was leveled. But what we are seeing now is everything is exposed. It is it has into the open, and just recently, as last week at Salam Media, we hosted a guest from Al-Quds, and we discussed what had taken place in Qatar, what had taken place in Doha, and we spoke about this gathering as well. And she made one point to me, and perhaps you'd like to expand on this, is she says, why are you people, or why are many people across the entire world giving prominence to these Arab nations, to these nations that have gathered, when we as Palestinians don't give them the prominence and the importance they deserve, because we truly understand what has been done to us?
Yeah, I think the question here really is understanding the difference between the current mafia that rules the Muslim world and actually understanding the power base that exists within the Ummah. The Ummah is rich in its resources, in military might, in a love for the people of Gaza. We've seen the demonstrations, whether it's in Yemen, in Morocco, and where they tried in Jordan and they clamped down on them, and in Egypt and many other countries, in Pakistan, and the list goes on, Bangladesh. We see that the Ummah has a huge love and concern for the people of Palestine and for the whole Ummah at large. But these rulers are there to ensure that this current situation continues as it is. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, what can we do to change that reality? Because we can comment about this and just be commentators with regards to the Arab Summit and the OIC and their failures. But really, I think we've all had a major shock in our lives in this last 2 years to witness the first live stream genocide in history. But the question that I ask really is, why weren't we rising before this? Gaza had been attacked several times and thousands of people had been murdered previously. And we know that in 2014, 2019, the Great March of Return, where 200 people were killed by these Israeli terrorist snipers. Over 5,000 were wounded. We know the famous Haaretz newspaper article, 42 kneecaps shot in one day by one of their terrorist gang members. What we really have been failing as an ummah is we never responded to these issues. Then we were shocked when we saw the beginning of a genocide and our incompetence and our inability to respond to it. The question that we have to ask is that the ummah is fragmented. We're broken up into these different national states, everyone concerned about their own nation and their independence. So Jordan is only interested in ensuring that their borders are protected, and the same for Egypt. And everyone warns, if my country is attacked, then you'll see the response. But actually, while Palestine burns and Gaza burns, no one cares. We have to challenge that notion of nationalism, which has unfortunately dominated the mindset of Muslims. While Sykes-Picot might have died 100 years ago nearly, we as Muslims still hold on to their maps that they've drawn for us, which have created these fragmented states within the Middle East and beyond. So I think as Muslims, really, we're not challenging the people enough to question why their rulers are doing this and why we need to replace them. So it's not good enough just to be spectators in this discussion. I saw an interview recently by a man called Osama Jabed on Al Jazeera, and he interviewed Deputy Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mohammed Ishaq Dar. And actually, there was at least some good questioning there. At one point, Dar said, I'm from the Ummah, and this concerns me. He goes, you're not a normal member of the Ummah. He goes, you are part of a nuclear power. You are part of a country that has a huge military force. And he tried to get away with simply saying, I have sympathy for the people of Gaza. We need to account them. So it's not just that we comment about these rulers from afar. We need to be asking our scholars, our imams, our khatibs, our journalists, our thinkers, our social media personalities, their influencers, why are you not talking about the real issue? So many people are happy just to keep spreading the massacres that take place in Gaza one day after day. But why are you actually silent about those who have allowed this to continue? So the people of Palestine, by the way, the people of Gaza do ask where the Ummah is. You will hear them time and time again saying, where are the Arabs? Where are the Muslims? Children. I just saw a little girl the other day saying the same thing. When al-Muslimin, when al-Arab, where are they? So the reality is people of Gaza do expect more, but they are fully aware that these rulers are there to ensure that the current state of affairs continues as it is. But we as people have to counter that. It's not good enough for us to say, oh, well, the rulers are useless. What are we going to do about it? Are we using our platforms to challenge that? And I'm sorry, not enough people are. I was in Jordan twice during the genocide, and I spoke to everyone I could, to all my relatives. And I said, you know what? Accept the risk. The people of Gaza have literally sacrificed their lives. Are we going to remain silent while the genocide continues on our screens? For how many more months, for how many more years are we going to watch this slaughter? So I really believe that as an ummah, we have to rise to the challenge and actually challenge these rulers and challenge the notions that allow them to continue to dominate over us.
Yes, Brother Omer. Sister Lina, perhaps you'd just like to comment in from what Brother Omer is saying in terms of challenging and why are we not challenging? And again, we've got this mentality of enslavement. And this is where the problem actually lies with the leadership as well. Enslavement of the Arab leadership. And again, looking at where their allegiances lie, the United States of America. And this also came out very, very strongly in the statement that was issued after this gathering had taken place, calling on the international community, calling on the very institutions be complicit, calling on the very leadership, calling on the very countries that have been active participants in this genocide.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to thank Brother Omer for actually mentioning that there are brilliant minds, brilliant young capacities within the Ummah. I mean, myself in Jordan, I've seen the most amazing young men being taken away in front of my own eyes simply for protesting what's happening in Gaza. So, and there are so many people across the Arab world, across the Islamic world who are being punished for standing for Gaza. And obviously, of course, it's not enough because the genocide is still happening, but there are incredible people who are doing work that maybe we don't see and are paying the price for really calling out the truth. But the reality is, like we've seen the prisons of Sidnaya in Syria. We've seen the tactics that these different leaders use in order to silence their own people. The realities are that even as children in the curriculums, we are taught over and over again that our safety is the number one priority, peace is the number one priority. And the genocide that's happening in Gaza is the biggest deterrent for the Arab people. I mean, literally, Israel, the way that they have bombarded and brutally murdered and killed and committed atrocities that we've seen on our phones. We've seen these horrible atrocities, probably the worst type of crimes committed in the 21st century. And we've seen that. And this is really their message to us. If you try to be free, like the people of Gaza, if you try to resist the colonial systems that really govern the Middle East, these Arab Islamic countries, this is your fate. This is what's going to happen. And I think it's going to take for us really to connect with our religion, really to connect with our faith as Muslims, al-Muslim al-Qawi khayrun min al-Da'if, to really strengthen ourselves in order to be able to overcome this fear. Freedom doesn't come on a bed of roses. And obviously we've seen that with the Qassam fighters. We've seen that with Hamas. We've seen that with the Houthis. We've seen the price that the Yemenis are paying just for standing by their Gazan brothers and sisters. It's a big price. But at the same time, I think it's going to take a collective awareness for us to reach this level where we overcome that fear. And I also want to mention this idea of, holding them accountable. I think we as Arabs have kind of gotten used to this idea that we're weak, there's no action that we can take, what can we do? But I'd like to refer to instances where Islamic or Arab countries have actually taken immediate action against other countries. So in 2021, when the Lebanese foreign minister mentioned that the Yemeni war was futile and it was a tragedy, Saudi Arabia immediately recalled its ambassadors, immediately imposed, cut off all Lebanese exports into Saudi Arabia. And they impacted the Lebanese economy, and they were followed by Bahrain, Kuwait, the UAE. They immediately took action. Let's not forget also what happened to Qatar in 2017 with the Gulf crisis, where they cut off Egypt, the UAE, many countries completely cut off ties with Qatar, airspace, economic ties. They even expelled Qatari citizens from Saudi Arabia just for simply hosting Al Jazeera, for having ties with the Muslim Brotherhood. So these countries do have power to take action. And that's all we want as Arab people, as Muslim people. We just want some sort of action to kind of at least give us some sort of hope. But as Brother Omar mentioned, as Professor Nidal mentioned, let's be very pragmatic about it. There is no hope with this leadership. And I think every night, every prayer, I pray that Ya Rab la tastabdilni, istamilni wa la tastabdilni. We are being replaced, and maybe it's for the best of the ummah. Like I was reading about Giuliano Lagos on the flotilla, where he's praying with with Muslims on the flotilla, and I believe he's considering accepting Islam. And so these activists, these incredible human beings who are risking their lives from all around the world, we are being replaced by them. And maybe this is the beginning of the liberation of Palestine. It'll be on the hands of people like these activists. And we've seen the shift that has happened on the global level. Netanyahu has mentioned that, Israel is in trouble, not because of the Arab leaders, not because of this joke of a summit, but because of Spain cutting off all of the trade, arm trades, and all of the economic agreements with Israel. The EU also is putting a pause to the trade agreements and the tariffs that used to be not imposed on Israel. So these are things that actually give us an indication that the global awareness is shifting, and that liberation doesn't necessarily need to come from someone speaking Arabic, from someone within the Middle East. As Palestinians have mentioned, they've lost hope in this, and Palestinians don't say we are proud to be Arabs. They just say we're proud to be Palestinians. I'm proud to be from Gaza, because literally that is the badge of honor that all of us should aspire to connect ourselves with, not these nationalistic identities of being Arab or being a part of this region.
Absolutely. Professor Nidal, I think, what is, and you mentioned earlier on, is we need to understand what is at stake right now. And I think just listening to all three of you at this point in time, and, it's unanimous that at the end of the day, there is absolutely no confidence, there is no faith in the current Muslim leadership. Again, there's talk of accountability, but also there is a major shift outside of the Arab world, particularly as far as the Muslim Ummah is concerned, and also to a large extent, people who are not Muslim. Because we've seen what has happened with Israel, we've seen what has happened with Netanyahu. They're being horribly exposed day after day. It's become a pariah state, the most hated country in the world. Netanyahu, we know what his situation is. And again, this is a sign of someone who is extremely desperate, to the extent that you would bomb another country, you would still go further and still threaten them even further, that we will not hesitate to even to bomb any country that would harbor anyone from Hamas as well. But all of this, again, is a sign of weakness and a sign of desperation on the part of Israel, the Zionist entity, and Benjamin Netanyahu. But once again, when you have leadership that actually fall for these threats, or they feel threatened by these threats, and again run to the very institutions that have been complicit.
Brother, what happened in Doha, we need to understand it. First of all, that you're talking about Qatar was asked to host Hamas just like they were asked before to host Taliban. And then the proposal that they were supposed to have been discussing is actually a timeline proposal that was proposed or presented by Trump. So the whole thing was a setup. That was a US-Israeli setup to eliminate the leadership of Hamas outside Palestine. Let's not look at it any other way. And was Trump informed, not informed? You know, we're not falling for this. And that's something that they've done time and again with Iran and with everybody else. So we need to understand that, first of all, as I've always repeated, this genocide is not Israeli. This genocide is American. The attack on Qatar was American. The F-35s, the F-15s, the F-16s, and the missiles that were fired on Doha, these are all American missiles. So why do we always insist that we're taking Netanyahu and Israel? Israel is not a country. Israel is not a state. It's not a country. Israel is a terrorist organization that's by force occupying somebody else's land, has no right to exist, never had any right to exist, let alone defend itself. So if we accept the primitive of what the enemy is saying, that Israel is some entity that we need to recognize and to treat as a legitimate member of the international community, we're losing the argument before it even starts. Israel is nothing. Israel is a criminal organization that is backed by the West, by the colonialists, imperialists, whoever like the enemies of the Ummah are, and trying to legitimize, you know, even if you're talking about international law. I mean, Israel, and that's something that I've been saying for more than 20, 30 years in mainstream US media. Israel has never abided or agreed or honored any international resolution or UN resolution or international law and so on and so forth. So why do we give it the recognition, give Israel recognition by the UN Charter or as a member of the United Nations or has any legitimacy and so on and so forth? Even here in the US, they're looking at Israel as a criminal organization occupying the United States government. I mean, if you look at all the mainstream, let's say the Gen Zs and so forth, the people like under the age of 50 here in the US, they're all talking about Israel as an occupation of America right now. And the next generation that's going to be participating in elections, that's going to be running for office and so forth, they all see the Israel as a burden, as the enemy of the United States. So we need to catch up with those times and talk about Israel for what it is. It is a threat to the world peace. It is a cancer that needs to be extracted from the world community. And until this happens, nobody is at peace. When we look at Gaza right now, first of all, from my perspective, I am from Gaza. And when I look at Gaza, I see Gaza through like two perspectives. One of them is the hadith of Prophet Muhammad when he says that ta'ifatun min ummati, and it tells us everything that's happening in Gaza today. It tells us that everything that's happening in Gaza in terms of what is going to come to and what the future holds for Gaza and for the Ummah. And the other hadith is Khairul Jihad, Jihad Asqalan, which is the Ummah has given up even the name of jihad, let alone political Islam, let alone anything that has to do with any functional Islam, because supposedly the West looks at Islam as a threat toward peace. Well, now things we're coming in full circle. We see Israel as the threat toward peace, and we see Gaza right now. And when I talk about Gaza today here in the US or on US media and so forth, I say that Gaza is the liberator of the world today. Gaza, inshallah, in a few years, we're going to have like a tide in every Western capital, in the US, in Europe, and so forth, where any politicians or any leadership has ever been affiliated by Israel or received funding from AIPAC or any Israel lobby and so forth is going to be seen as public enemy by the streets on those countries. So what Gaza today is doing right now, in spite of all the toll, the human toll and the price that we're paying. I mean, every morning I wake up to Facebook to find out that there is 4 or 5 of my immediate family in Gaza that has went back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to mention the ones that were found, the remains were found under some collapsed buildings and hospitals and so forth. So the price that Gaza is paying is of course, like, I mean, beyond imagination. Nonetheless, what Gaza is doing right now is not only liberating Palestine and Gaza and so forth, but liberating humanity and the world at large. Unfortunately, this liberation, we see it more manifested in non-Muslim streets, much more than Arab streets, when you have people basically like they're just too coward to overthrow like some gang that's been like in their capital for like so long. I was a part of the Arab Spring. I was on the Egyptian streets. I was the first one, alhamdulillah, to have entered Tahrir Square on the Friday of Rage on January 28th, and the last one to leave Rabaa on August 14, 2013. We're dealing with a bunch of thugs, dictators in the palaces that have no legitimacy whatsoever. They only exist in power by force, by the protection of the Israelis and the Americans. And they have no constituency or legitimacy among the people. None of them is freely elected. So why do we have all of these millions and masses and so forth in the Arab streets accepting to be subjugated to those bunch of thugs that we see in Doha giving us speeches that they don't even know what they mean? So we need to come to terms with the reality. The reality is right now, Gaza is fighting for all of us to liberate us, to break the chains that we all have wherever we are around the world. And it's time that we pay our dues back to Gaza.
Yes, Professor Nidal. And also, I think, Brother Omer, for someone like yourself, and I know you've been a khatib here as well, you've given many a talk in a mosque. And when Professor Nidal speaks about political Islam, and we're talking about revival, and I think this is absolutely critical and this is important for us, because we've seen, political Islam taking a back seat in many parts of the Muslim world, in the Arab world. I mean, none of them rule, with Islam or under true Islam. We've also seen it with many scholars, and sadly, even in this country, where, we've been advised by some leading scholars not to talk about political Islam, which is irrelevant at this point in time. And I cannot understand why it is irrelevant, because this, at the end of the day, when one looks at political Islam, when one looks at the ideology of even an organization like Hamas, for example, we know that an Arab country actually feels threatened by political Islam, by the ideology, by the Ikhwan, by the Muslim Brotherhood. And perhaps, just your take and your comment on this whole question of political Islam and why it is so important for its revival.
Yeah, I mean, essentially what we're facing in Gaza is to do with the lack of Islam in our lives in a political sense. So one of the things I always mention when I give the talk about my father's history in Palestine is who were the last defenders of Palestine against the British occupation. It was the Ottomans in 1917 who actually defended it from Gaza, and they were finally defeated after 3 battles. What I always remind people is that they defeated the British on the first and the second battle, and it was only on the third battle that they lost. And the reason being is that the Arabs who revolted against the Ottoman state were the cause of the weakness of the Ottoman defenders. So even till the last days of the Ottoman state, which they called the sick man of Europe, they still had the obligation to defend this land because they saw it as part of this ummah. And we know the famous statement of Abdul Hamid II, the Sultan, the Khalif, who said that he would never sell part of Palestine because it's been irrigated with the blood of the martyrs. So they had a responsibility to this land of Palestine. This is the concept of ummah when it's understood correctly. What we have now done is essentially accepted this carved up body with every piece alone, a hand, a head, an arm, a foot, and we're saying, yeah, this is the natural situation of the ummah, which is absolutely abnormal. And the concept of political Islam is that we are unified under the Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what we see is the complete opposite. And I understand the comments that Professor Nidal was making. The people, should do more and should speak out more. I think the reality is, though, they've seen a failed attempt at removing their rulers. So we know that Mubarak was removed, and then who came in his place? Morsi was elected, Allah yarhamah. And then what happened? Sisi came back, even more brutal than Mubarak. Same situation we can see in Tunis. No real change happened. In Libya, it's fragmented. Yemen has been destroyed. So people look at these case examples and say, look, they failed. So we need to show them that there is a different path. And by the way, I think it's really important to understand we have people within our countries and in the Muslim world who have strength, whether that be physical or whether that be through influence. And I think we can't underestimate our call to the armies. Even though the top brass of the armies have completely failed this ummah, they are definitely the protectors of these rulers. Within their ranks, there will be people who feel differently. I remember an article that came out on, from Middle East Eye right at the beginning of the genocide, where they spoken to a number of officers in the Egyptian army who said they were furious at the fact that they were not allowed to support the people of Gaza. We know that many of these countries, they lock up people in the armed forces who show empathy and sympathy towards the people of Gaza. So it's by design. The situation we're facing is by design. It's not something we've just walked into. These rulers are backed by the West and have created an infrastructure to keep themselves in power through the mukhabarat, through the intelligence services, through armed forces that are loyal to them. But we have to break that barrier. We have to engage with the people who have influence. I see the army as both the problem and the solution. At the moment, they're 100% the problem. But how can we engage with them in such a way to motivate them and encourage them to think about being those people who can liberate our lands from this occupation that we witness? One example that I always give is of an amazing general, Jordanian general. His name was Mashur Hadith al-Jazi. This man broke the chain of command from King Hussein and defeated the Jewish entity when they tried to invade Jordan in 1968. If you listen to this man, what he did, he gave Quran, the Qurans, the Musahif to the people, to the soldiers. He made them take an oath on the Quran before they were engaged in battle. This was a man who understood the importance of your deen as a soldier. But unfortunately, we don't have those around us today. But how do we engage with them? How do we make this call dominant amongst those who have power? Be that in the armed forces, but I also say the journalists, I also say the scholars, and people who can influence.
I'm not too sure, I know there is a bit of a background. I'm not sure where the question is coming from. But, I'm not sure really a 15%, but we must apologize for this. Sister Lina, I think one of the most difficult issues here is it requires a change in mindset, it requires a revolution, particularly among young people, right across the entire world, because we know that, what you already...
Brother Inayat, I'm so sorry. There's just some noise on your end, so it's not very clear.
Brother Inayat, you're muted.
Rejuvenating media day by day. This is Salam Media.
Valley's Motor Spares. We supply motor spares and accessories for all makes and models of motor cars, LDVs, buckies, trucks, and earth-moving equipment. We deliver on time, every time. Please contact us via WhatsApp on 014-592-0925 or call 014-592-0925 or visit 28 Zenderling Street, Rustenburg. Remember the name, Valley's Motor Spares.
Kids these days are smart, and when you're competing for their attention against their smartphones, you need to make smart choices, like using Sunfoil triple refined pure sunflower oil in every meal you make. It's naturally cholesterol-free and approved by the Heart and Stroke Foundation as part of a balanced eating plan. So whether you're cooking, frying, or baking, you get the great tasting results that'll get their attention faster than the latest app. And if that doesn't work, change the Wi-Fi password. Sunfoil. Now we're cooking.
When the perfect blend of stylish decor, exquisite halal cuisine, and warm hospitality come together, it could only mean Al Bayt Lodge. Your true home away from home. Al Bayt is the ideal heaven for families, business people, and tourists with its 4-star family rooms and other luxurious facilities. Conveniently situated close to Port Elizabeth Airport, the beach, and other amenities. Your stay will be truly unforgettable, as you'll be taking home lasting memories of the warm hospitality, the serenity and tranquility that Al Bayt has to offer. For reservations, call 041-583-6415 or visit www.albaytlodge.co.za.
I'm going to have to log out and log in again.
For too many communities across Africa and the world, access to clean water remains a dream. At Africa Muslims Agency, we dig deep, reaching into the heart of the earth to fill the cups of those in need. Sponsor a water well for 16,500 Rand or a borehole in Afghanistan for 55,000 Rand, or Africa for 65,000 Rand, or any amount. With water comes food, health, education, and growth. An ongoing reward with Africa Muslims Agency.
Yasin Badat Financial Advisory. Are your financial goals feeling out of reach? Yasin Badat Financial Advisory is here to turn your aspirations into achievements. Our dedicated team, armed with a history of success, is ready to
Yes, I
guide you
can.
through the complex nature of financial and investment
Yeah.
planning. Whether you're a seasoned investor or new to the game, our personalized solutions cater to your unique goals and risk appetite. Trust in our commitment to transparency, integrity, and excellence. Ready to unlock a world of financial freedom? Partner with us today. Call Yasin Badat Financial Advisory at +27 33 346 2071 or visit www.yasinbadat.com. Yasin Badat Financial Advisory, guiding you to financial success.
Make a conscious choice. Sip for change and support Palestine Drinks Africa. With every can, you help end the genocide and stand in solidarity with Palestine. Choose between our original or sugar-free options available in a case of 24. Every sip is a step towards justice. Every purchase a powerful message of unity and support for the Palestinian cause. Contact 082 888 1440 or 082 7739 556 today and be part of the change. Palestine Drinks Africa. Sip for change. Liberty for everyone.
Listen to something fresh. Listen to Salam Media.
Well, welcome back to the broadcast, and we must apologize for the slight break in communication, but we continue with our guests, Lina Abojaradeh, Professor Nidal Sakr, and Omer Hussein joining us out of the United Kingdom. Sister Lina, I know we had a bit of a sound issue, actually. I'm hoping you can hear us a lot more clearly now. And the whole issue, regarding, and I think we talked about how the minds of the leadership have been colonized to a large extent. And Professor Nidal spoke about, a direction, and we need direction and moving forward from here in terms of the lessons that we can actually take from Gaza as well. But I think the key issue here is that change of mindset. And I think there are just so many lessons that we can actually take, particularly in the last 2 years of this genocide, that, many young people in particular who are witnessing this genocide unfolding in front of their very eyes and starting to think differently, but also a change in mindset because, again, if we want to move forward, if we want to hold leaders accountable, and whatever we intend doing forward for the benefit of the Muslim Ummah, and more importantly, work towards the freedom, the liberation of Palestine, that change in mindset is absolutely important. It's critical. And just your thoughts on, how do we actually approach this, because we know there has been a failure on the part of leadership, and in the absence of leadership, who do we turn to next?
That's a very difficult question, and I'll try to answer it based on my work. So as an artist, I've been using my art and my voice and my poetry to raise awareness about Palestine for the past 15 years. So long before October 7th. And I think there's many people that have been tirelessly doing work to raise awareness with the hope that one day, a spark will happen and a global shift will happen. And so I'm proud to have maybe contributed tiny little cracks of awareness here and there with people, especially in the West. And I think this is what we need to continuously do. Right now, the world is aware. So I think the next step is, how can we actually take action to alleviate the suffering of the people of Gaza? Nothing is in our hands. Allah can decide overnight that something huge will change. Power dynamics can shift overnight. But I think for each person, as an individual, we need to see our strengths, see what we can contribute to the Ummah and what we can really give the people of Gaza. I think if we don't look at ourselves in the mirror every day and really think, what have I sacrificed for the people of Gaza? And if we come up short, nothing, then we need to be doing more. And what I do want to say is the importance of the youth in this critical time. It's amazing seeing an entire generation of youth on TikTok educating the world about, meanings regarding resistance and Hamas, and how, Palestinian men deserve to be humanized as much as women and children, and how the US really is the empire behind everything that's happening, and it's really US weapons behind the Israeli occupation, and how it didn't start on October 7th. It started even before 1948. And really this shift of awareness that has happened through youth on TikTok, through these TikTok shorts that have really changed the world. And so I'm really wagering on the youth to even produce even more and more work. Personally, I've really felt how important the youth are because I was barred from giving a TED Talk to university students, not even a talk about Palestine, but because of my social media content regarding Gaza, regarding Palestine, regarding colonialism within the region, I was banned from actually giving the speech. So this is how afraid they are from us educating the youth. And so the youth is really a power that we can really, put our hopes in. And I am very hopeful. Like Brother Omer said, Al-Jazi, his grandson, I believe Maher Al-Jazi, committed an operation, a resistance operation. He was an ex-Jordanian military man, and he actually did this operation that killed Israeli soldiers on the Jordanian border. And so there are many people like Al-Jazi who just need that right moment to awaken and to spark those feelings for Palestine and for Gaza, these feelings that how can we withstand what's happening to our women who are, intense and who are being displaced day by day? How can we withstand what's happening to the children who are being cut to pieces? All of these feelings will translate into action. It just needs the right moment. And so I would just have everyone just really evaluate their strengths and try to do whatever they can to continue with this momentum of global awareness that's shifting.
Professor Nidal, that spark and that awakening that Lina speaks about and waiting for that right moment. And I know over the period of time that the discussions that we've had, you've always remained positive that moment is not far away, and to the extent where, you mentioned to me over and over again that in the matter of the next year or two, inshallah, book your ticket. We're going to be meeting in a free Aqsa, inshallah, and we continue making dua that this is going to happen. And once again, one needs to remain positive because the signs are there. The signs are there that now Israel has become the most hated country in the world. The signs are there where all the hypocrisy surrounding this genocide has been horribly exposed. And it's right across the entire world, whether it's the Western countries that are complicit in this genocide, whether it comes from the Muslim world, from the Arab world, from the leadership. It's all open. It is blatant for everyone to see. And something has got to give. And this is the reason why I say you've always had that positive mindset that something is going to give.
Yes, brother. I repeat again, 2024 elections here in the US was the last general election with Israel on the map. So come election 2028, inshallah, there's not going to be Israel on the map altogether anyway. This upcoming election, the midterm 2026, is actually going to be probably the very last midterm election with Israel on the map. And I can tell you right now, and you can hold me to it, I don't know if I'm going to be around by then, at least half of the AIPAC and Israeli supported congressmen and decision makers here in the US are going to be out, because I see the waves in the street. I've seen the waves taken over, America taken over the West. And unfortunately, I'm not undermining all the heroes that we have in the Arab streets. I'm not saying that just because they have not succeeded so far in uprooting the dictatorships in their countries, that there are not good people still there. But obviously, whatever is being done is not enough. I was a schoolmate of one of those Arab leaders, quote unquote kings that they're talking about, and I can tell you there's nothing king or royal about him, or any leadership quality that I've seen in him, or any of those so-called, most of them actually, the other Arab leaders. But we're saying, like, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, it's only a matter of years before things go back to where they belong. I am firmly committed, inshallah, to making qiyam of the last 10 days of Ramadan of 2028 in free Al-Aqsa, inshallah, in free Jerusalem, or free Al-Quds, of free Palestine. I have no doubt in my mind about this, no matter what we see today. Just like I said, the hadith of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ about the people of Gaza, and how that the whole world is going to gang up against them, and that would never faze them or shake them. I am aware of what's happening on a daily basis. I mean, even for the hour that we've been talking, and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, the mujahideen in Gaza, they've already, alhamdulillah, successfully carried out a number of attacks against those occupiers. And when you even learn the details about the fearless hearts that they have, and the victory from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the steadfastness that's given to them by Allah, and the heroic acts that they're doing in defeating, actually, this is not Israel that they're fighting. They're fighting the US, they're fighting Europe, they're fighting Israel, and they're fighting the Arab dictators all at the same time, with all their military might, with all their technology, with all their state-of-the-art weapons. Alhamdulillah, with the flip-flops, and sometimes without even any shoes, barefoot. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us his signs through those heroes. Alhamdulillah. So yes, I don't call myself optimist. I call myself somebody who has yaqeen in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in his prophet, and in what we stand for. Our greatest fear and worry is not to be replaced. That's really the whole point. I remember going through September 11, when everybody was waving the American flag here in America, and saying we're proud to be Americans. When I told them, what are you talking about? You're a Muslim. You're not you don't subscribe to all of this rhetoric. So as long as we stand for our purpose on this life, and the trust that Allah has put in us, inshallah, we'll be victorious. And we hope, inshallah, to be part of those people who would be accepted by Allah and forgiven and shaded in the day of judgment. Otherwise, we're just failing ourselves before failing Gaza or our deen.
Inshallah, Ameen. Yes, Brother Umar, I think what is important to understand is, what do we do as an ummah, at an ummah level as well, and apart from the political leadership in the Muslim world, we're talking about leadership, in a spiritual sense, the scholars across the world, in our very own countries, like you in the UK, in South Africa as well, because, to a large extent, these are leaders that hold influence, over the minds of masses, whether through khatibs, whether through talks in the mosque, or wherever else, they do have some influence. And at an ummah level, what do we do to firstly enhance that leadership, so that leadership is directed in a direction where we want this ummah to go, so that we are able to highlight the plight of the ummah firstly, but more importantly, to wake this ummah up from a slumber?
I think that's a really important question. I mean, we've said so much about the situation that we're facing. I think what we shouldn't be doing is delegating the responsibility to the rulers purely from a perspective of saying, look, they failed, so we've got nothing to offer. When I've gone to Jordan, one thing, and I'm sure Sister Lina will confirm this, they talk about there's 3 pillars of their support for Palestine: boycotting, charity, and dua. And I said, why do you limit yourself to these 3 actions? Where in Islam are these the correct actions in response to a genocide that's happening next door? So you have to challenge those notions that they've accepted. And what's amazing, and we've said this, that Yemen, the people of Yemen, have accepted to be to sacrifice so much in terms of the bombings that they faced, This is a country that's gone through its own civil war and is decimated, as we know. Yemen is extremely poor, barely has the basic resources to look after its own people, but yet they've stood by Gaza. And the problem that we have, people will use this example. I think this example is constantly used. Oh, look what happened to Gaza, look what happened to Yemen, are we going to join them as well? But what they fail to explain to you is that there are powerful nations that actually have material power, in the sense, I'm talking about armies like Egypt, Jordan, Turkey, Pakistan, who can actually bring something to the table when it comes to protecting the people of Gaza. But they also use the same argument. We have to protect our own national interests. This concept of nationalism has to be challenged at every point that you come across it. And unfortunately, many people just accept this. Oh, that makes sense. They have to worry about Egyptian interests. And, I remember when Iraq was attacked and, they wanted to get support within the Arab world, Jordan came out with a campaign called Al-Urdun Awalan, Jordan first. So this shows you this mentality, how it's indoctrinated in the people to make sure that they do not see the Ummah as their responsibility. Because believe me, if Jordan was attacked tomorrow, the argument would be that we have to defend it. This is our responsibility as an army, as a people. The same would be for Egypt, the same would be for Turkey, as we saw in Qatar. But even then, to be honest with you, I'm not even sure if they would respond. That's how pathetic they've become. Now, what can we do? I want to remind people a very important lesson about this genocide. As the professor said, from the 7th of October, there's been a massive shift in public opinion across the world, including the US, which is the heart of the kind of Jewish Zionist support. And what happened? That was people going out on social media, people discussing in their communities, protesting, and they managed to turn the tide against the juggernaut of the mainstream media, the establishment media. Imagine we all took the same position that we're taking now. Oh, there's nothing we can do. We've tried our best with the rulers. The Ummah is in a pitiful state. What else can you expect from us? Imagine we took that same position when it came to the dominance of the Zionist narrative. We would be in a very difficult position, in a very different position. But we rose to that challenge as people, as a collective. All of us played a role. Maybe some of us played it on social media. Some people produced video content. Some people gave talks. Some people attended protests. But as a collective, we challenged that notion. Now, I believe, and my message to everyone is that we need to dig deeper. We need to challenge the notion that it's acceptable for the Muslim Ummah to be in this pitiful state. Because look, Al-Fashir is burning in Sudan. The people are being starved in North Darfur. 750,000 people besieged by the RSF, who are backed, as we know, by the UAE. Why are we not even talking about them? As an Ummah, we've really failed in our responsibility to people across the world. Now, I would say, look, as the sister said, we have to think about what we can add to this discourse. Some people are good at social media. Some people can give talks. Some people are khatibs. We need to engage with everyone. There was giving a talk on Sunday. Someone went out of the way to go and meet with one of the scholars so that he can join us to talk about military intervention. And inshallah, he's going to be joining us. Imagine your position as, well, the scholars have failed. They haven't talked. They're not going to join us. But they took that action. They went to the masjid. They met him. They convinced him, and he's going to join us. I think people need to have a little bit more confidence in the impact that they can have. If you start just becoming defeatist in your mentality, then believe me, you're not helping the people of Gaza at all. And we're just failing them. And I want to remind you just one beautiful statement of the late Anas al-Sharif, Allah yarhamah, when he said the jewel in the crown of this ummah is Palestine, and he entrusts it to us, and it is the heartbeat of every free person. That should give us motivation that even the people of Gaza expected us as an ummah to respond to them. Even to this day, they still call out to this ummah. And there was a famous, very well-known personality in Jordan. I think his name is Omer Hussein. I maybe pronounced it wrong. Sister Lina can correct me. But he did a post which was very supportive of the resistance and the people in Gaza. And subhanAllah, they put a massive photo of him up in Gaza. And he couldn't believe it. He said, me, what have I done? And the reality is the people of Gaza see our actions. They see our solidarity. But please don't restrict it to just calling out the massacres. You need to be calling for solutions. Don't be silent if you see nationalistic, the promotion of nationalism. We know in Jordan they're promoting the Jordanian flag. To be honest, I feel I'm caught between two flags at the moment. I'm caught between the flag of St. George in the UK and the flag of Jordan in Jordan, as if this is my loyalties. Where's your loyalty to this ummah? For goodness sake, how have we allowed these divisions to keep us in this position where we can't even respond to the wholesale slaughter of a whole population? We need to do more. We absolutely have to find our energy and strength to do more.
Yes, Selina, just the energy and the strength, and as Brother Umar mentions, the jewel of the crown. And at this point in time, the jewel of the crown is bleeding, it's hemorrhaging, with the slaughter that is taking place. The annexation of the West Bank is on the cards as well. We had the sister out of Al-Quds last week, and she spoke about the month of October, and she actually fears, what may take place even in Al-Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa, in the month of October. So these obviously are swords that are hanging over this jewel of the crown of Palestine at this point in time. And once again, as Brother Umar mentions, that, we need to do something. We need to find, within ourselves what we can do. And I know ordinary people are doing whatever they can within their capacity, within their capabilities. Many people are doing what they can. And, I'm not too sure at this point in time, what more can be done, because again, we are human beings, we are emotional beings. And just to look at these horrific sights day in, day out, at the end of the day, it does take an emotional toll. And to the extent that many people tell us, and they tell me this as well, we just can't watch anymore.
Subhanallah, I think that's why there are stages for jihad. There isn't just the maximum stage of jihad, which is obviously jihad, military, jihad of actually facing your enemy with weapons, with your hands. But we do have jihad bil kalima, jihad bil mal, and we have jihad bil qalb. So we have all of these ways where we can struggle against our oppressors. And so just evaluating ourselves and seeing what position do I hold? What can I actually do? So Brother Omar mentioned an example of how he convinced this speaker to actually speak in this event. He's created a meaningful change. The heroes that I've mentioned in Jordan, Maher al-Jazi and Sultan al-Ajluni, these were Jordanian military men who actually took their weapons, and because they have the capacity, the training, the weapons to actually take military action against the Israeli enemy, they actually took that step. And so if you're a teacher, how can you raise awareness with your kids? If you're a mother, how can you raise a generation that is actually a fighting generation, a generation that rejects this language of, for example, like we saw in the summit, of hostages rather than, no, these are war captives. How can you, in your position as an engineer, rebuild Palestine, Gaza, once it's liberated? So I think each person can find something meaningful that they can do in their position. I think it's unacceptable for us to say that, oh, these images are too horrid. I need to care about my mental health. I can't view these children being massacred because I need to take care of myself. That's the very least thing that we can do, is to understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis so that we are triggered into action. And so I would just ask everyone to evaluate themselves and what they're doing on a daily in their daily lives, and also how can we be closer to God? Yani, how are we becoming better Muslims? If I am the same Muslim before October 7th that I am today, if I haven't improved in my connection to God, in the way that I read Quran or the way that I treat others, if Islam isn't being embodied in me and I'm not actually actively trying to improve myself, then I think that's a big part of the problem. Because as a ummah, I think Umar bin Khattab mentioned that Arabs are only strong through Islam. نحن أمة أعزنا الله بالإسلام. And so Islam is the only way that we can actually, bring back our power, rather than just being these followers to these Western governments and societies, and just trying to copy them in everything they do, and trying to assimilate into this global system that really views us as inferior. And so that's my take. And following what Professor Nidal mentioned about praying in Al-Aqsa, I always say that Palestinians have no responsibility to let us enter Palestine once it's free, and to pray after we've kind of let them down. But my daughter is from Gaza, so I always say that she'll take me with her to Gaza, inshallah, and she'll allow me to enter Palestine once it's free, inshallah. And so it's always good to visualize. And as artists, I understand the power of visualizing and coming from a position of strength and hope if the fighters, Al-Qassam fighters who are within the tunnels, who are completely, are facing a completely huge enemy, not just Israel, but also the US and basically every Western government there is, they are able to retain hope. I mean, they wouldn't be fighting this battle unless they believed and they can visualize that free Palestine that we should all visualize as well.
Well, inshallah, we certainly do. Prof. Nidal, we are heading towards the end. We've got about 10 minutes as well. And we are going to obviously round up as well. Starting off with you, just some final thoughts. If you could unmute your mic, please, Prof.
I conclude by saying that we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the greatest blessing and bounty of making us a Muslim, of making us live these times, and to have our allegiance and our belonging to Palestine. Palestine is the jewel, like everybody said, of humanity, as a matter of fact. Gaza right now, it is actually, I look at it as the beacon of freedom in the entire world. Gaza today, in spite of all the atrocity, is the free place, is the only place that's free, and people are exercising their freedom by fighting the evil, collective evil of the entire world coming to their doorsteps, if there is any steps left for that matter. But inshallah, Gaza is victorious. Gaza always has been victorious, and Gaza inshallah will be always victorious. So will be the rest of Palestine. And inshallah, we just ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to count us among those who stood for Palestine, and to accept us among those people who deserve to have that allegiance to that place at our time. As for those who look for excuses and throwing blames, let alone blaming Gaza and Hamas and October 7, I leave it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to settle those accounts, inshallah, in the day of judgment.
Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. Wallahi, Prof. Nidal, I know, all of you, Brother Omer, yourself, Sister Lina, all have Palestinian roots, and really, sometimes I'm at a loss for words, actually, having spoken to so many Palestinians over a period of time, and how, I've always mentioned it, Brother Omer, that, if there is a nation that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has chosen out of all nations, is a nation of Palestine, because they are not only protecting the honor and the dignity of Masjid al-Aqsa, but the honor and the dignity of an entire Muslim ummah that actually rests on their shoulders at huge sacrifice, at the cost of their blood, at the cost of their lives, their children, the thousands upon thousands of martyrs, and once again, one can only marvel, at the resilience, the steadfastness, the sacrifices of the people of Palestine, and even without even complaining, they're doing it with pride on behalf of a Muslim ummah. And just some final thoughts, on Palestine, on Palestinians as a nation themselves, Brother Omer.
I mean, the Palestinians are an inseparable part of the ummah, number one. And unfortunately, the Arab and Muslim rulers try to sell their responsibility of Palestine by making it a purely Palestinian issue. My father always tells me an amazing story. In 1948, he's 12 years old in the Nakba. He's still alive with us, actually. He's 90 years old nearly now. And subhanAllah, he became a refugee near Jenin. And the reason he was there is because of a famous Iraqi general. His name was Omar Ali Bayraktar. And he decimated the Haganah Jewish terrorists there. And people don't know about that story. And it always disturbs me that people don't know the story of how the Ummah came for Palestine. And some betrayed it, but some sacrificed their lives. And there's 44 shuhada in Maqbarat al-Shuhada in Jenin. And he lived under the Iraqi army. And then, as I mentioned, the story of Al-Jazi in 1968, a Jordanian general who decimated the Israelis. And we have a story of Omar Abrash from Syria in 1973, where he actually fought the invading Israeli forces, and Hafez al-Assad assassinated him for breaking rank and fighting them. And we have the story of Shadli from Egypt. These are 4 different generals from 4 different countries in the Arab world. I can tell you the story of the Bangladeshi fighter pilot who came and fought them, and he flew for 3 different air forces, and he brought down many Israeli jets. The reality is Palestine is the responsibility of this ummah. It just so happens that the people of Gaza are the ones who are sacrificing everything for it at the moment. But believe me, that pain, that suffering, that emotion, we're all feeling it. Who cannot say that their life did not change 2 years ago? If it didn't change, then really you do need to re-examine yourself. Because what we have witnessed in terms of the sacrifice, the steadfastness, when we listen to the people like Ustad Mahmoud, which I know Sister Lina will know about, and Professor Nidal, who keeps motivating the people based on this deen, reminds you to stick to your deen, he reminds you to be brave and to speak out. These are the examples to wake up the ummah. But Palestine is part of the body. You could say it's part of the body that's trying to wake up the rest of it. We're trying to wake up for Fajr, but when most of us is still sleeping. But we know that we need to wake up. Inshallah, let that be the message today, that we need to wake up. And we need to wake up for more than Palestine. We can't neglect the other situations that are befalling the ummah. That we have hundreds of thousands of our Muslim brothers and sisters in concentration camps in East Turkestan. We have 750,000 of our brothers and sisters in Al-Fashir, in North Darfur. We have Kashmir that's still under the Hindutva occupation of India. We have so many problems all across the world. Palestine has become the jewel in the crown of representing this deen and Islam. So we need to awaken that in our families, in our children, in our communities. And subhanAllah, as Professor Nidal mentioned, so look how the non-Muslims have woken up. Look how much they feel moved by the situation. SubhanAllah, when I went to Egypt, I was with so many non-Muslims who came to march for Egypt. Imagine people coming across the world to march for this cause. So I think this should be the motivation for us today. Islam is being represented in Palestine, in the people of Gaza. Let that be a lesson for the whole of mankind.
Yes, and over and above the march to Egypt now, all eyes are on the flotilla as well. So, inshallah, we are keeping a close eye on what is happening there as well. So, Selina, the final word from you, inshallah.
I'd like to quote a Palestinian artist, actually, her name is Rafif Ziadeh, a poet, and she says, "We teach life, sir." And I think Palestinians continuously through these small little moments that we've seen from Gaza, from the West Bank, from the Murabitin in Al-Aqsa, they really do teach us life. They teach us how to be better mothers. They teach us how to be better parents, better family members, and better Muslims. And I don't think it's because ethnically we're Palestinian. I think it's because, the people in Gaza truly represent what Islam really should be. And I think that we shouldn't limit ourselves based on, being Palestinian, not being Palestinian. Izzuddin al-Qassam, who my great-grandfather fought with, was actually Syrian. And he's the one that put this whole thing into place. These fighters that are currently in Gaza are being inspired by him. And so really, the message of Palestine is a universal one. And even Abu Ubaidah, when he talks to the world, he says, free people of the world. So he is talking to every free person who believes in these values to really wake up and rise. And so I'm just proud to even have any connection to those people who truly understand what Islam really is. And I am inspired by them every single day. And I hope that myself and everyone listening can really make them proud with our actions and with our faith and with our hope. It's funny that we look to them for hope in these difficult times when really we should be, shouldering that strength and giving them hope in one day having the strength to be, alive and be one of the liberators for that free Palestine.
Yes, Sister Lina, and I must say, wallahi, this gives us so much inspiration as well for someone like myself as well, sitting on the other side, right on the southernmost tip of Africa, actually, where, week after week, alhamdulillah, we have the opportunity to engage with people like yourselves, like Professor Nidal, like Brother Omer, and yourself, Sister Lina, as well. It just provides us with that inspiration as well to continue, inshallah, regardless as well. And again, to try and enhance our work as a media organization, as one that subscribes to humanitarian journalism as well. So clearly, it's been an eye opener, but also at the same time, it's provided us with a lot of inspiration to continue. And inshallah, Allah grant us acceptance. Allah grant us sincerity in what we actually do, inshallah, and let us continue, being the voices for the voiceless at this point in time, inshallah, which is exactly what you people have done as well in terms of, being part and parcel of this broadcast this evening. So I certainly do appreciate your time. Jazakallah khairan. Allah Ta'ala accept your efforts. Allah reward your efforts as well. And once again, it's been wonderful connecting with all three of you, Brother Omer, Sister Lina, and to you, Professor Nidal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, that brings us to the end of part one of tonight's edition of In Conversation with myself, Inayat Wadi. And once again, there's just so much that one can actually take away from this discussion this evening. And initially, it was about talking about the summit that had taken place in Doha, Arab security versus betrayal of the Palestinian cause. But there is just so much more that one can actually take away. And inshallah, we trust and hope that, you have been inspired by this broadcast this evening, inshallah. And we will continue regardless, inshallah. And also next up for about half an hour, we want to provide you with an update on the flotilla as well. We've got Sister Yvonne Ridley. Hopefully she will be joining us as well, and possibly one other guest. So for about half an hour, we just like to provide you with an update on the flotilla. So for now, we're going for a break. We'll be back. Don't go away. Stay with us.